Ladies and gentlemen, the American jury and Bulldog Nation, we at Bulldog Media, where Americans fighting for America is what we believe in. We did a show about the Northern Kentucky primary races where we did endorsements. And because we live in the Cincinnati area, we also want to do a show for the Cincinnati races and the significant Ohio races. And we're not afraid to endorse. So with me today is the lovely and intelligent president of Bulldog Media and my running mate for governor, Wesley Deters. No relations. I still think we ought to do those bumper stickers. Deters and Deters, no relations. But anyway, Wesley, before we launch, let's do some things real quick. May 14th, on a Saturday from noon to 6 or 1 to 6?
1 p.m. to 6 p.m.
1 to 6 p.m. At the farm in Morning View on Madison Pike, same place as Freedom Fest, is going to be a Trump bikers rally. They're coming all across the country, and the purpose of this is old Smitty is being honored. Smitty's got some health issues, and it's my understanding there's even going to be some national speakers there, but we want to promote that. I also want to promote June 14th is the book release for The Butcher of Pakistan, which I'm very excited about. And then Freedom Fest, which is on September 10th, Saturday at the farm. All of you that went there last year know it. And this year, the lineup is now Eric Trump, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Candace Owens, Corey Lewandowski, Seth Dillon, the president of Babylon Bee, yours truly, and others. How do you like those apples?
I think it's great. I am really excited about the potential of bringing in Riley Gaines.
Right, we're in touch with her.
And she's very interested in
Explain to the viewer that may not know who she is.
Riley Gaines is the University of Kentucky swimmer who swam at NCAA's and competed against the trans swimmer, Leah Thompson, who is really a guy.
The Jane Tarzan.
Yes. And who technically she got second place to, I guess, according to the NCAA rules. In my opinion, she is the true and rightful winner, and she is interested and very excited about keeping the dialogue open about her coming and speaking to that.
That's great. We're going to begin today by just doing a recap of this Congressional Map Issue, and we're going to do it briefly. Josh Wentz, our producer, has put together an incredible summary, but we don't want to get bogged down in the weeds. Let me summarize this as Josh scrolls this on the screen for us, Wesley, and then you can add whatever you want. In every single state, every 10 years, folks, a state legislature redraws the congressional lines and the state house lines based upon population. And this was called gerrymandering all the way back in the colonial times for Eldridge Gerry of Massachusetts, I think it was, where they drew this crazy freaking line that became called gerrymandering. It goes all the way back to those times. Now, this is just political hardcore fact. Every state legislature, if you control it, you get to draw the lines every 10 years. So state legislatures matter. This is the debacle that's gone on in the state of Ohio. You have Maureen O'Connor, the most corrupt Supreme Court justice in America. I can prove that from the Durrani litigation. She is a Republican who's bought and paid for by insurance money. At the same time, while she's owned by these big corporate interests, she tries to create her legacy of being this liberal judicial officer. So she has thrown in with the 3 Democratic justices, and they have blocked the Republicans who control the state house in Ohio, has blocked over and over again the lines that they have drawn. And I'm no fan of the Republican establishment in the state house. However, they control the state house. It's their right to draw these lines. And the Ohio Supreme Court keeps rejecting over and over again. There's been threats of contempt. A federal judge has now said if it's not done by a certain date in May, they're going to make the ruling. But the effect of this, Wesley, which is incredible, is they can't have these state house races because nobody knows where the lines are drawn.
Right.
And it's always based upon population. The reason why they do it every 10 years is you have to have a certain amount of a population for a congressman, state legislature. So they redraw the lines to fit that. But I think it's outrageous what Maureen O'Connor is doing. By the way, just so you know, I like the 3 Democratic judges on the Ohio Supreme Court as it relates to the Durrani litigation. They're ones that want to give these people justice. Maureen O'Connor does not. I think if you're a Republican in the state of Ohio, you should be outraged what Maureen O'Connor's doing.
I think if you're a voter in the state of Ohio, you should be outraged at what's going on with these lines. You don't know who your candidate is. As a candidate, you don't know who your constituents are. This has created such confusion, and I think it's ridiculous. You hear a lot of these liberals coming out arguing that Ohio's a purple state. Folks, Ohio is a red state. Ohio is a Trump state. Make no mistake. And I also think it's interesting that Trump came out with this recent endorsement of LaRose, who's the current Secretary of State. I'm wondering if this battle with the redistricting lines and the congressional lines being drawn has anything to do with that.
Well, speaking of the voters, these lawyers involved in this, one law firm's up to $1 million. So the taxpayer is footing the bill for the legal fees too, but it's crazy. So let's jump into the May primary and what we want to do here. And we begin with the Ohio governor's race. Jim Renacci is running against Mike DeWine and Blystone, and I think there might be a couple others. We wholeheartedly endorse Jim Renacci. We've interviewed him. We've covered his thing. Jim Renacci has been a congressman. He's been a businessman. He was standing alone for Trump. When Trump came out in 2016, he was the only Republican congressman who came out for him. He's been there from the beginning. And these people that say Jim Renacci is a rhino crack me up. And the Blystone supporters, just let you know about the Blystone supporters. I get it. You think he's Mr. Constitution. Joe Blystone, I take it facts for facts. You can't put on a cowboy hat, act like you're a good old boy, wave the flag, and then go out and do the things that he's done, these campaign violations and these, it's off the charts what he's done. This isn't just nitpicky stuff. You can't run the state and be Joe Blystone.
Right.
And all he's doing is helping Mike DeWine, who is a disgrace. Mike DeWine locked down the state of Ohio. I don't know how Ohio Republican voters are voting for this guy. Jim Renacci's gotten the endorsements of Butler County, Cuyahoga County.
Right to life.
Right to life. Mike DeWine is a dweeb. Go ahead. You say whatever you want to say.
I like Jim Renacci for the mere fact that he is this great example of the American dream. He was not raised with means, but he picked himself up by his bootstraps and created a very successful business empire. He is
he's a good guy.
He's such a good guy, and he's very successful in the private sector. And he speaks to how he can apply those concepts in business to straightening out the state of Ohio. He is unapologetically for Trump. He believes that, we need to get the education system in this country under control. He speaks against CRT. He is without a doubt pro-life. He stands for all of the values that matter most to Trump conservatives in the state of Ohio. So for Mike DeWine and Jim Renacci to be in somewhat of a tight race is shocking to me. And I've also heard through the grapevine that Blystone was ran intentionally by the DeWine camp to torpedo some of the votes for Renacci. I hope that's not the case, but it is possible.
You're wasting your vote for Joe Blystone at this point in time. Yep. You've had your run. You are wasting your vote if you vote for Joe Blystone. And another thing, nobody's bigger for Trump than we at Bulldog Media. Nobody. But we're not afraid to say this. We are very disappointed that Trump has left this one alone and not supported Jim Renacci. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're smart enough to know at those highest levels, there's a lot of machinations that are going on behind the scenes and some deals that are made and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But it's just sad that he didn't get the endorsement. If you're a Trump voter in Ohio, Renacci's your guy. Moving on to the United States Senate. The big recent news on this was the Trump endorsement of J.D. Vance, which shocked everybody. Bulldog Media endorses Mike Gibbons wholeheartedly. I met Mike Gibbons down at Mar-a-Lago, got to know him and his wife personally. He is a good guy, and we're going to stand with him all the way to the end. He is running a great positive campaign ad, so we've endorsed Mike Gibbons. Josh Mandel is endorsed by Ted Cruz. He's up there at the top of up top there with Gibbons and Vance. Timken is Corey Lewandowski's actually on her campaign too. If I'm Mike Gibbons and Jane Timken supporters, and I'm Mike Gibbons and Jane Timken, the Trump endorsement of J.D. Vance really hurts me to the core, because J.D. Vance, with all due respect to Junior and the president,
right.
J.D. Vance said the most horrible, horrible things about Trump. And his reversal has nothing to do with a firm conviction. It has to do with trying to get the Trump endorsement, and he pulled it off. And it just really, really bothers me, and I hope Mike Gibbons pulls this out. I can tell you this, that PAC is pummeling. I think it's ran by McCormick. What's it called? Pro-Growth PAC? I forget. They are pummeling J.D. Vance with his Trump statements. And there's a new video out that makes it even worse. I mean, Vance compared Trump to Hitler. But go ahead. You say what you need to say.
Mike Gibbons is another example of someone who has built tremendous wealth in the private sector. And I have an enormous amount of respect for anyone that meets payroll. I was speaking to my producer, Josh, earlier in the week about this, how men...
So you respect me because I've had to meet payroll after pay. Right. People don't realize how meeting a payroll every 2 weeks or every week is an incredible stress. Go ahead.
It sure is. It sure is. And, you know, I think, and you and I, Eric, have spoken about this before. The fact that Trump endorsed Vance is such a blow to these three other candidates, which include Josh Mandel, Mike Gibbons, and Jane Timken, because those three have been unwavering supporters. So it's almost as though anyone but Vance. In fact, Mark Levin has been very vocal about this.
Boy, he pummeled him yesterday.
Absolutely. And he said, if you are a conservative voter in the state of Ohio, J.D. Vance is not who you're going to vote for. He has no conservative values, and all you have to do is reflect on his record. I hope, and I don't like to admit this, but I hope J.D. Vance loses.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it too. I hope J.D. Vance loses. I don't mind saying it. And you know what? We're allowed to feel this way.
Right.
The only way that we have any power in this game is if the Trump voters, you know, we love Trump, we love the policy, but when our guy we feel like makes a mistake, you know, it's terrible. His Oz endorsement and his Vance endorsement are head scratchers to me.
And his LaRose endorsement.
You
know, the other thing too, it's hard to speculate whether these endorsements, these recent endorsements that are raising eyebrows among Trump supporters, are contributing to the conversation that Trump is endorsing these sort of left of right candidates in an attempt to win a culture war. So I've seen a lot of discussion of this. If that's the case, you know, he's abandoned some of his most loyal supporters. And here at Bulldog Media, we're loyal. We see what's going on. We're not going to play politics, and that's why we stand firmly with Gibbons.
Yeah. You know what I think it is? Peter Thiel. Mm-hmm. Peter Thiel was behind Vance, bet on Vance. Peter Thiel's in the Trump club car. Mm-hmm. I think it's a Peter Thiel. Moving on. Steve Chabot, first congressional district. We wholeheartedly endorse old Steve Chabot. He's like an old shoe, but you know what? How do you not support Steve Chabot? He got knocked out once by Driehaus, but he's back in. So do you want to say anything about Steve Chabot?
24 years in Congress, Cincinnati native, really, really good guy. He kind of is a centrist with his policy, but he did contribute in a bipartisan effort to write the PPP program that came out of the shutdowns and the COVID lockdowns, and that helped a lot of Ohio businesses.
One of the things that I want to stress is we're not for career politicians, but at the same time, there are some examples. In other words, if somebody has been there a long time and is doing a good job, I call it the lesser of two evils. I'm a pragmatist. You know, and Chabot, I think, represents one of those people. He's not like a Senator McConnell.
Correct.
I see Chabot as a good guy. Brad Winstrip, wholeheartedly endorse Brad Winstrip. the doctor himself. Good guy, good congressman. He's a doctor. You know, he's not a career politician. Anything you want to say about Brad?
Yeah, he's a doctor, very well educated. He's huge in supporting our veterans, and I love that. I think that adds some balance.
And he was a vet himself.
Yes, and some diversity among that crowd. And he did vote against the $1.9 trillion spending bill, which I thought was really interesting and great. And he also voted to fund the border wall. And those are important topics that Ohioans need to remember.
You mean the border wall that Thomas Massey's against on constitutional grounds?
That's right, that border wall.
Jim Jordan, U.S. House District number 4. How do you not? But he's got a suit on in that picture. I mean, Jim Jordan, you know, he's a warrior. He's a hero. He's on the front lines, man. I mean, thank God we have Jim Jordan. And if we get a Republican plurality, look the hell out with Jim Jordan, right? Breaking
news this morning on Jim Jordan is that they are releasing 2,000 text messages between Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows surrounding the Trump administration in the early days of January 2020, when they were really concerned about the election results and how they were going to be able to get this election result back on track. And now what's happening is, of course, the Biden administration is going to attack him as being some sort of January 6th conspiracy contributor. But Jim Jordan is without a doubt a freedom fighter. Jim Jordan, we adore you. Keep up the good work.
And Ohio District 8, Warren Davidson, another good guy. I met him at the Boone County Christmas Gala, and he's another one. He's in the same mold as Jim Jordan.
I've never met him. I've heard good things about him.
All right. And then, by the way, just so you know, some of these House districts where they have a Democrat, we're just making the endorsements of people that we know. Mm-hmm. We are endorsing in House District number 15, Michael Carey. We are not obviously going to endorse Anthony Gonzalez in House District 16. Let's move on to Supreme Court justices. Now, this might shock some of you, okay? But this is personal. This is absolutely personal for me. And for the Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, we are supporting Jennifer Bruner. We are not supporting Sharon Kennedy. Sharon Kennedy has voted with Maureen O'Connor and these others against these Durrani victims on so many just absolutely evil rules. It is sick and diabolical what they're doing. Now, I always admit when my personal issues, and like I always joke, I'm kind of like a guy without a party sometimes because I'm so conservative and libertarian and pro-Trump. But at the same time, we represent, at Deters Law, we represent people who are harmed and fight the man, so to speak. That's one thing I like about Trump. Trump never went for medical malpractice reform. And then the other one is Terry Jameson against Pat Fisher for the same reason. And then also the same reason Marilyn Zayas against Pat DeWine. By the way, if you didn't know this, and most of you do, Pat DeWine is the son of Mike DeWine. And I want to tell you, and I'm going to just share this inside baseball story with you. Pat DeWine was busted on his 50th birthday party thrown by his wife at his wife's house. Have an inappropriate contact, I won't give you the details, of his staffer at his 50th birthday party in his home in the living room. Think about that. How come he's not had any discipline?
Shady.
No discipline whatsoever. None.
Crazy. So, I mean, but instead of moving on real quick, I think it's important to note that you have just come out and endorsed 3 Democrats.
I know it.
For Supreme Court.
For Supreme Court. And that is completely based upon the Durrani litigation, which I admit. Because those 3, just so you know, those 3, I mean, what DeWine, Fisher, and Kennedy have done is just shameful.
Yeah.
So
speaks to their character.
All right. Trust me, when the book comes out, you're going to sit there and say, well, Bulldog, we understand that. All right. Ohio Attorney General David Yost. Is there a primary in that? I don't think there's a primary. Let's skip down to the Ohio Secretary of State, John Adams and Frank LaRose. Well, do we follow the big guy? You make that call.
You know, I don't think having any sitting Secretary of States that aren't actively trying to uncover election fraud
I know.
or auditing the results should stay
What's John Adams' position?
office. John Adams wants to uncover election fraud.
Let's endorse John Adams, not to mention the fact his name is John Adams.
It's got good juju.
He's got to have some genes there. By the way, did you see that on my genealogy where that buddy of yours that came to my fundraiser that was working on Mitchell's?
Yeah.
I am the descendant of not one, not two, but 4 Mayflower compact
That's amazing.
signers.
Yep. And you were related to a governor.
Yep. Ohio Treasurer Robert Sprague. Watch the money closely. Moving on to the Court of Appeals judges, First District, Robert C. Winkler versus Jennifer Kinsley. Robert Winkler is a corrupt Republican. We endorse Kinsley. I know it's crazy. You're going to be happy on the next one, though. Judge Lubers is a dingbat. I can tell you stories. We endorse Christopher McDowell, the Republican, who's a write-in candidate. Court of Appeals Common Pleas, Thomas Paradon versus Patrick Dingelacker. We support Dingelacker.
He's got a great last name.
Yeah, George, you gotta love Dingelacker. My Granny Krippenstapel's maiden name was Krippenstaple. So Dingelacker. Judge of Court of Common Pleas, Thomas Heekin versus Kubicki. We're supporting Thomas Heekin over Kubicki. Kubicki is a corrupt Joe Deters protege. I want to stress this with you at these judgeships at the Common Pleas level. These are not people that make decisions like the U.S. Supreme Court judge on your constitutional rights. I just want to stress this. These Common Pleas judges are people that see humanity every day.
Right.
And the most important thing you want in a trial judge is somebody with humanity, with brains. And the politics of Republican and Democrat are much less in the local level. For example, in Kentucky, you don't even know who the circuit judges are, Democrats or Republicans, do you?
Right.
Because they don't run
right.
like a Democrat or Republican. I want to stress that. I'm not abandoning Republicans here. I'm in the law game. I know which one of these judges care about people and who doesn't. In the Common Pleas, Britt Bourne versus Megan Shanahan. It's Megan Shanahan. Megan Shanahan recently came out. She was pretty cool. She came out and said these algorithms and justice, like how you issue. She goes, a spreadsheet. She goes, you don't sentence people based on a spreadsheet. It was pretty good stuff. Common Pleas, Stacey DeGraffenreid. Wholeheartedly endorse her. I like Stacey DeGraffenreid, and she has happened to be a Republican. Common Pleas, Domestic Relation, Ann Flotman versus John Seave. I know John Seave. He's the Republican. We endorse him. Domestic Relation, Coyton versus Betsy Sunderman. Betsy Sunderman. Her dad was a judge in the Durrani litigation. Good guy. Hamilton County Commissioner Stephanie Dumas, Matthew O'Neill, easy call. Now, here is where what party they are makes a difference.
Right.
I mean, they're handling your money. They're handling your money. So just so you know, these are totally different. Wholeheartedly endorse Matthew Neal as Hamilton County Commissioner, as well as Thomas Brinkman for Auditor. And we'll also endorse Raja Paul for Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas, the clerk. In Butler County, I just say we pay. I don't know these people, so let's not. We won't do Butler, Warren, and Claremont County. Also, just based upon the length of our show, we don't want our show to go too long. But there you have it. Is there anything that you'd like to add overall or individually, or anything we left out, Wesley?
No, I just think that the Ohio primary is this Tuesday, and it's going to be very telling. You and I spoke briefly earlier in the week about how to determine the value or the weight of a Trump endorsement. And coming up in Ohio, this will be a huge test, so we'll see. If
Vance wins, it's all because of Trump, and people are going to be genuflecting to Trump. By the way, just to let you know, just like we want the Trump endorsement for Kentucky governor. Yep. I mean, everybody wants the endorsement. If Vance and Oz both win, you're going to want it even more. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. Thank you, Wesley. Want to thank Josh Wentz for doing a great job in the production of the show. We will be here, by the way, on Tuesday evening, I think at 8 o'clock or a little before, to cover what goes down in Ohio. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. I hope you have a great day.